are you guys? How are you going? How's things?
Um, Very difficult. Uh, it's almost like, well, I can't even explain it. It almost feels in a way like we just live two separate lives. We sleep in the same bed, we go through the motions, but it feels like we're going through the motions of life. We're going through the motions to raise our other two children to the very best of our abilities without screwing them up with our sadness.
Mm.
Um, we try to laugh. It has just, it's rather than bringing us closer, it's brought us apart.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamis, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Bill from recoveryafterstroke.com. This is episode 141, and my guest today is Gina Keeley. Gina is the mum of 3 children, and in 2018, Gina and her family had to deal with suddenly and without warning losing their youngest daughter, Paige, due to a ruptured AVM while she was at school. Paige was just 6 years old. In this emotional episode of the Recovery After Stroke podcast, Gina and I discussed the day of her daughter's death, what the loss has done to her family, and how Gina is determined to make something good come from this tragic situation. Gina created the Paige Keeley Foundation to raise money and awareness about AVM and open an AVM screening clinic where people can go and have a low-cost MRI of the brain to detect AVM and other neurological conditions early and save lives. When you listen to this episode, make sure you have some tissues handy. And when it finishes, please share and like this episode on whichever platform you are listening or watching. Sometimes I forget why I started this podcast, but after this episode, once again, I am reminded. It's to raise awareness of the plight of stroke survivors and their families and to honor those we have lost. If you can support the foundation that Gina Keeley has created in honor of her daughter, Paige, please visit the Paige Keeley Foundation.com and make a small donation. All links to the Paige Keeley Foundation and the donation pages will be available on the show notes. Thanks for listening. Gina Keeley, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Bill. Nice to meet you.
Lovely to meet you too. Thank you for being here. The reason I contacted you is because you are the founder of the Paige Keeley Foundation.
Correct.
And it's something that I assume is not something that you would have preferred to be associated with ever, but you are
No.
now. How did you come to be the founder of the Paige Keeley Foundation?
Um, well, I never thought that I would ever do something like this. Never. I never even thought it was. I just never even knew, other than donating to foundations, and what they were all about. So I lost my 6-year-old daughter, Paige, to a unknown brain AVM, which is, as most of us in this area know, is a arteriovenous malformation of the brain. And I don't know if you want me to go into what happened with her and how we came to be.
We'll do that in a moment.
Um, so, so after losing Paige, you it's almost sink or swim. I have 2 other children, and I am married. I have a home. I had a wonderful life. I had the most beautiful, amazing life anybody. It was like, for the most part, a dream. A couple fights here and there, but I had everything. And I lost it that day. And it was either I just felt myself sinking into a really bad place. And I knew that I wanted to make a change and a difference because we were told that what took Paige's life, if we had known sooner, it was treatable and she would have survived and should be here today. And most likely quite healthy and coming up on her 10th birthday.
Mm. So, how long ago did you lose your beautiful daughter?
Uh, we just had the third anniversary. It was January 8th of 2018 that it happened.
Yeah. So, what was that day like? How did it start out? What was going on?
Um, the day was great. I uh, I had the three kids. All my kids were at that time they were 6, 7, and 8 years old. Um, so we always had a little bit of a madhouse, and I was always kind of crazy in the morning. I just kind of like let stuff roll. We would put music on and just dance around, and usually they ate a lot of pancakes. Just I'm a bad mom. I sugared them up before school. Um, and then would make a mad run to the bus. And Paige was always my firecracker, my wild third child. And I don't know what it was. I always just let her beat to her own drum. And I always just would say, "Oh my God, you're so cute. You're only 6 once. I don't care what you wear. And do it. It's so cute." And sometimes she'd wear makeup to school. And I just thought it was really cute. I was like, "Go ahead, wear makeup." Um, Crazy outfits, like
You would
the
have been
craziest.
a terrible mum for letting a 6-year-old wear makeup.
It was so cute, though. It was so cute. Um, and we ran to the bus. Paige was happy, healthy, perfect. All three went to the bus. I went out about hour later, did my food shopping, and I pulled into the driveway, and I got a call from the school nurse that said Paige was in the office and she's really upset. She has a really bad headache. And they're like, "I think you should come down." And Paige was not a frequent flyer to the nurse's office, so it was very out of character. Um, and no sooner did I pull out my driveway, and I made it not even to the end of my block, and they called me back and said, "We called 911. Paige is unresponsive." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about? Like, she has a headache, you know?" And I was like, "I'm right here." I was like 3 minutes from the school. So I got right to the school and I pulled up. The ambulance had already arrived. And I walked in, and everybody's face was just like, they looked like they died or something. And I walk in and I look at Paige and I'm like, "Paige?" And she was out. She was not speaking. She couldn't even look at me. She was having seizures. I described it as her body was like flailing around, and I'm like, "What's happening to her?" And as a mom, you want to freak out and go completely insane, but I wasn't thinking like anything. I said, "All right, I'm going to be really calm and cool, and I don't want her to feel my energy." And they got her in the ambulance, and she was never looked at me, never responded to my voice, um, and she was having seizures the whole way there. I knew something was really wrong because the ambulance drivers, they seemed like very rattled, like, "What the F am I gonna do?" Because I was just like, "She stop making her have seizures, like, stop this." And the ambulance ride was relatively quick. Um, but by the time we got to the hospital, they were on top of her doing compressions. And I didn't know at that time that she was about to code for the first time. Um, so they got her in a room, got her somewhat breathing, and um, it took it took a long time to get her, I guess, to stay alive long enough to get a scan to see what was going on. They determined that they thought she was having a stroke or a brain bleed, and she coded several times. She was intubated, obviously, and they got her strong enough to where they said, "We're going to go in and try and operate." And the doctors looked at my husband and I and said, "The situation's extremely grave. Um, we really can't tell you what the outcome is going to be, um, but either way, it may not be very good." Um, and by that time, my husband, I don't even know how he did it, called our family because we knew something was so wrong. And she didn't survive surgery. We were put in that room that they put you in the hospital, to keep you calm, keep you quiet, keep you with your family. And I I remember, like, I was just like flailing around. It was an outer body experience. I I felt it. I felt like something was happening, and I heard the hospital like announce like a code, and I saw they had assigned a nun to our room, and I saw her looking at her phone, and I knew. I said, and I remember I said horrible things to her too. I was like screaming at her, and I felt so bad. But she was so wonderful to me. I mean, I called her like everything under the sun, and I couldn't help it. I didn't know why. I was just like, leave me alone. You don't know. And and they came in and they said that Paige didn't survive. Um, the doctors were crying. They couldn't control themselves. It was horrible. The staff in the hospital, I mean, people were just walking out because they couldn't take it. Um, it was it was just so awful. And my mom came after that. She doesn't live so close, and it was so. It was. I still don't believe it. I really don't. Like, I I keep myself so busy till I'm just exhausted. Because if I stop to think, then I lose it. And
Were the
I
children
go
with
to.
you?
So what the after she died, the doctors, I asked them, like, what happened? What happened? And he said she had this brain bleed, and she was likely born with it. And this disease, if it's not detected early and they rupture, you have usually one of two ways to go. And he had said the way that hers ruptured and where it was, um, he said that even if she did survive, she would have been, what they classify as like a vegetable. He said she wouldn't have been able to breathe on her own. She wouldn't have been functioning. But at that time, I wouldn't have. I wouldn't care
Of
what
course.
she was like. And he had said that she was most likely brain dead by the time I got up to the school. He said it was so severe. So yeah, it's
Were the
ripped my family to shreds. Um,
Yeah, makes sense. Were the children with you at the hospital?
Thank God, no. One of my girlfriend she was with me the entire time, and I often just feel horrible for her, like as another mom. And she watched the whole thing, and her husband went, and I asked her, please pick up Maeve and Ronan from school and take them back to your house. And we had them come home later that night. They drove them home, and telling them that their sister was gone, and they had made cards for her and said, "Get well, Paige, we love you." And their friends did. and the school was making little cards, and you know, it was horrible, horrible, and it's so horrible for them now because they were so young, and now they see what's happened to our family. They see what's happened to me and my husband, and we're just really different people. We
Mm.
live very different, um,
Lives.
very different lives.
Yeah.
We're extremely unconventional. We let anything fly within reason.
Yeah.
I don't really eat dinner at the dinner table. We kind of eat in the den or wherever. Um, and I care less about stupid shit. I'm like, just live.
Yeah.
I try to avoid myself of anything that is not worth it. And my focus is my kids and trying to continue to be a good person.
Yeah. Man, I don't.
Do you have children?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
such a tough thing. I mean, I don't think I would comprehend at all what you're going through if I hadn't had what your daughter had. And
Yeah.
I contemplated the possibility that I wouldn't be around. And then I contemplated the possibility of, what are my kids going to think of me if I die? And how do I make good on relationships that I've stuffed up or been, short about or whatever. And I've mended, had all that time to mend stuff and to do all those things and to constantly strive to put my foot down in what I want to do and how I want to do it and what I want to live. And then I've got other people, in the way or part of that part of my life who they're not in the way per se, but they're living their own version of their life, and I'm trying to live my own version, and my own version is a little bit more, like you said, it's a little bit more different than it used to be, and I have a lot more expectations about not having expectations and bullshit stories, and I haven't got time for rubbish conversations and any of that. And the people that are going through that with me are struggling around me because I'm not letting them get away with being ridiculous, and it's causing problems. Like, it causes problems for me. And I'm living it from somebody who had the experience of the AVM, the surgery, the bleed, all that stuff. And you're living it from the person who doesn't have the person around that went through that.
Yeah.
And that person that you knew was your daughter. You gave birth to her, you raised her, you created her, you gave her life. And then something so ridiculous took that from her.
Yeah.
And you were never to know. And neither was I, and neither are all the people that I've interviewed who have AVMs or had AVMs that have burst. And it's the ones that I've interviewed are only the ones that survived. I haven't interviewed the ones that haven't. So it's such a shit thing. And we went through, it took me about 9 years to get back on track, back to
Oh
my
my
life
God.
and all that kind of stuff. And other people take longer and they struggle further. And that's the survivors, that's the AVM survivors. But then what happens to the families? And this is what we don't get. We don't get the stories from the families who are impacted by this. So it kind of gets glossed over that it's a life and death thing. It kind of
Yeah.
gets glossed over that AVM is not something that it's, I used to wear it as a badge of honor, and it's not really something that's a badge of honor. It's something that has taken a lot of lives, and just suddenly without any idea. And I reckon about 3 years after I started going through all the dramas, I was at a funeral for a guy who was sitting in his chair, who was a friend of one of my wife's friends. Sorry, he was the husband of one of my wife's friends. And he was sitting in his chair, and they found him in the chair, the way that he was
Yes.
sitting. They left him there watching TV while the wife took the kids swimming, and they came back, and he was in the same position. When they spoke to him, he didn't respond, and they said, "Stop playing games.
Yeah.
What are you doing?" And he was gone. So I've had a little bit of time, only a small amount of time, to think about like what really AVM means. And what it means is, for a lot of people, very different things. For some, it's permanent disability for their entire lives. For some, it's invisible disability, which messes with you and stuffs you around like it does with me all the time. And for others, it means losing their loved ones. And that's such a serious thing. So I'm glad we're talking about this, because this is the only thing we can do. We can only talk about it. And I don't think anyone has done what you've done. They haven't gone down the path of problem solving, I suppose. I don't know what it is, and I don't know why you do it. I don't really care why you do it. I'm just glad that you're doing it, because this is why I do the podcast. It's to raise awareness, bring stories together, connect people, make them feel like they're not alone, and also spread the word, the good word of the work that they're now doing after their experience, because a ton of people are doing amazing work spreading the love, so to speak, and making it about other people and trying to not make it about them. So does it help you that you're now making it about other people and
Yes.
saving other people and making it less about you, although definitely is about you and your family? How does it help you do that?
It does. Bill, it's interesting because I just actually got asked that question earlier today from someone, how, are you okay? And I said, yes. It's almost like I feel like this is just what I do now, in a sense. It it makes me feel good that I can give comfort to someone. Um, for an example, this is so crazy. A girl that I went to high school with, we graduated together, and she reached out to me just over a year ago, and she said my daughter just had an AVM rupture, and I was like, "What?" And she said, "Gina, I hate to ask you, but she's alive." And so basically, her daughter, 160 days in the hospital. Um, she clung to life multiple times. I mean, and hers, it was so bad they couldn't even operate for a long time. She was completely immobile, not speaking, just horrific, horrific. And 160 days, she finally made it home. I communicated with the mom the whole time, and she shared with me pictures, and that was like, people need to see that. And you don't want to, I'm not looking to make a spectacle of people that survived, but for people to see the children that this happens to, that are fortunate enough to survive, or in some cases unfortunate because their quality of life is destroyed.
Mm.
And there are a lot of them that, I mean, they can't speak, they can't breathe, they can't do anything on their own. My girlfriend's daughter, thank God, her speech is very off. Her physical limit, she's very limited to what she can do, but hopefully she'll be stronger and stronger, and she's home and she's alive. I get messages from It's usually moms, a lot, all over the world, all over the country. I found your page, I saw your videos, and can I talk to you about my kid's AVM? And we share the same story. What happened to you? What happened to your kid? Where were you? And my biggest question that I ask everybody is, what did the doctors tell you? And they'll say, and they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, what did the doctors say? How did your child get it? Or how did you get it?
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
And they said, oh, they told us we were born with it. We were born this way. And I said, did they say anything else? Like, was it curable? He said, yeah, if you detected it early. And I'm like, how in this day and age are doctors and just accepting the facts? Like, okay, it's horrible for them. Sure, you lost another patient, but we have a disease right here in front of our faces that a simple scan and awareness can detect. And I get it. These fights suck. It sucks to do this. It's really grueling. You don't get paid, but I know it will be so rewarding. Once I get to that level, once somebody really hears what we're doing and finally comes back and was like, you saved my life. I'm alive because I forced my doctor to give me an MRI scan. Or now that this is approved and it's talked about, I went into a screening facility and I'm here. Or maybe they found brain cancer, or maybe they found an aneurysm, or there's just so much stuff. So I'm so passionate about this. Like, I'm like where the Mothers Against Drunk Driving started. It took that one mom whose kid was killed, and you either lose it or you go after the person that murdered your kid until your death. And that's what I look at this as. It's a murderer, but it's just it's a serial killer that we know where it is, but nobody's tackling it. Nobody's killing it. And I have been so fortunate to start this foundation and learn how to do this on my own, mostly because of COVID, because I had nothing else going on. And I learned how to do a website, how to set up the bank accounts and the 501c3 and all that. And I wound up getting in touch. A local mom here reached out to me who works in a stroke and brain aneurysm center. And she heard that I want early detection. And the doctor that she works with, she goes, I walked in and I said, hey, she goes, this woman lives in my neighborhood and I think we could do something. And the doctor was like, yeah, we can. He said, let's talk. And within a couple of days, I was on the phone with him, and I just never thought, I'm like, really? This is possible. I said, I know it is, but are you really talking to me? Like, I'm like a no one. I'm just like a really sad, pissed off mom. And they're amazing, like amazing what they do. They take time out of their schedule They don't take any money from my foundation. They've developed a screening program where they screen people for free. And because I'm not a doctor, um, they fight like hell to get MRA scans approved for people. Because as you know, that's the key to this. A screening will only take you so far, but we got to get the scanning done.
It
And
sounds so obvious now that you say it. It sounds so obvious because when you're scanning someone's brain, there's so many things that catch people unawares that
yeah,
they often get too late that could have been prevented just by knowing. And in Australia, there's free breast screening
wow,
for breast cancer for women above a certain age. There's free prostate checks for men above a certain age. The government sends a parcel in the mail when you are above 50 years of age, where you put a sample of your poo so they can test for bowel cancer.
wow.
There is ovarian cancer screenings. There's, you name it, the amount of screenings that we have that are for free in this country. That the
I can't
fact
believe
that
you
there's
have
not
that
one,
for free.
yeah, it's all for free because we pay for in our taxes, we pay for our Medicare system, similar to what Obamacare was trying to achieve, something like that.
Yeah,
We pay for a percentage of our tax dollars go directly to the Medicare budget, and there's free Medicare for everybody. So for me, my brain surgery, my 3 years in and out of hospital, all my scans, every single thing was absolutely free, not a single dollar out of my pocket. Yeah.
wow,
So it's
incredible.
impossible to even comprehend that, because for me it's just normal. But I know that I speak to a lot of people in the US and other countries, and they're like, this cost me $100,000 and now I've got to pay
Yeah,
money, and I'm half stuffed and I can't get back to work and all this kind of thing. And I'm like, wow, I get it. Like, I totally get it. So for us, this all just happens. It's part of the process. And there's a lot of amazing foundations doing work, raising money. In Australia, it's the Stroke Foundation. Their job is to, they have a mandate to prevent stroke, increase life, quality of life for stroke survivors, and to raise awareness. So they have that job. They are funded by partly the government and then partly by other supporters of the nonprofit. So people from corporations, or perhaps they are, other people that have been affected by stroke. They do regular drives to raise money through the community. So that stuff is happening, but no one has thought ever, I'm pretty sure, to add screening of the brain to this list of free stuff that's getting done. Because if we did, we would save a ton of money, lost productivity, and save lives. That's exactly what we would do, wouldn't we?
yeah,
And this is what you're trying to do. You're going, this is going to reduce harm. It's going to decrease trauma. It's going to save lives. It's going to put you in a position of power and in a position of control of your ailment or your issue in your head. You're going to know more about it. It's not going to catch you off guard. It's not going to tear families apart.
yeah. And in this day and age, it's preventative medicine. That's what everybody supposedly strives for.
Because it
So,
costs less.
right, why are we opening all these tools up? The faster that we find all of these diseases that are just killing people, like it's right there in the back, it's in your back pocket to right there. And it just doesn't get approved here in the United States. Um, and it's you literally you have to go to either a great doctor that's willing to help you, okay, and
Mm,
that has the staff that's able to sit there and fight with insurance companies for hours on end,
mm.
or you have doctors that they're so busy and inundated they don't have time for this. Their staff does not have time to sit there with your insurance company to fight for a scan. They didn't want to approve my other two children to get scanned. Like, why? They don't have, there's nothing wrong with them. I'm like, you don't know that. I just lost a child and you're telling me no because you don't know what's wrong with my kid. You have to find something wrong and then it's too late
Mm.
in most, whatever.
Yeah, it's too late because if it bleeds, then it's lifelong after that. It's too late. Even if the person survives, it's too late because you already
Yeah.
went through all the shit. You already ended up in hospital. You already traumatized everybody. You already it cost so much time, money, and effort and productivity and everything out the window. You got to
Yeah.
crawl for the rest of your life to get that back. You got to go kicking and screaming to just get back some productivity, and the rest of it, it's already too late. Even if they survive. So, I went to hospital 18 months before the first bleed with a crazy, weird, wild, ridiculous headache. And
Mm.
they did a CT scan. They didn't do an MRI. And the CT scan didn't reveal the AVM.
You hear
So,
that so often.
yeah, right. So what I didn't know is that in Australia, an MRI costs about $560 or $600, depending on where you go. What I didn't know is that you could pay for that. I could just pay for that privately. If I can afford it, I can say, go to my GP, my general practitioner, ask for a referral, go to a radiography clinic and say, here's my money, pay for me to do this scan. I could do that.
Really?
Yeah, I could do that. So I would have paid anything to know what I found out 18 months later when my entire left side went numb and I ended up in hospital. And then at about midnight, the doctor said to me, oh, by the way, we've found there's a shadow on your brain. We don't know what it is. And then it took them, uh, and then 6 weeks later, it happened again after they told me to go home because they couldn't see beyond the shadow, which was blood.
And they didn't say, like, they knew that there was blood that they were calling a shadow?
Yeah, they knew it was blood. They knew it was a shadow. They didn't know what was causing it. They said to me, it could be a tumor, cancerous, it could be a faulty blood vessel, it could be all these things we don't know. And right now, the risk of going in there is pretty high that we're going to cause additional damage because we don't know what we're dealing with. Go home and we'll see you in 6 weeks. Because for me, the numbness spread from my big toe to the entire left side over 7 days. So the bleed was happening very small amounts, like it was a micro bleed.
Mm.
So that was what kind of lulled them into this false sense of security. And then what happened was about 6 weeks later, I started to get dizziness and I started to feel nausea and felt like vomiting and the room was spinning and everything.
Oh my God.
And I got to the hospital and my wife dropped me off into emergency and she was going to go park the car. And then in that time where I walked on my own 50 meters, I got to emergency and I don't remember anything after that. I didn't know my name, who I was, what I was doing, none of that stuff. I just remember waking up. My wife was at the end of the bed. I didn't recognize her. I didn't know who she was. And I spent another 3 days in hospital. And now the bleed had gone from being this small shadow, probably the size of a dime, to a golf ball size. Like it was huge. And then that stayed in my brain almost for 3 years. By the time it slowly decreased in size, by about the 2.5-year mark, I was being monitored the whole time. It bled again. And this time I was in the city driving around and felt a burning sensation on my left side. And I drove myself to hospital. I made all the wrong decisions, but I did them and somehow it got me there. I drove myself to hospital, got there. And when I got there, I went into emergency and said to them, I'm having a bleed in the brain right now. And it's tough. Do something about it. And they were doing, the poor doctors and nurses there, they were just doing the whole, all right, no worries, tell us about yourself,
You're like, no.
Yeah. who is this crazy guy telling us he's having a bleed in the brain? And I'm like, just get me a scan straight away right now. Anyhow, I eventually got them to, I convinced them to get me into the MRI. They went through their process, of course. They brought up my details. They found my history. And then the room was full of radiographers and scan, you know, they were all wanting to see who's this crazy guy that came and is telling us he's bleeding in the brain. So anyway, then they found that, and then we had surgery about a week and a half, 2 weeks later. My surgeon finally said, look, we're going in. We have to go in. We've got to remove this thing. It's dangerous. You know that. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Your risk of becoming sick and dying from this and unwell while you're driving or working or whatever is really high now. It's higher than what it was before. So are we doing this? You know, are you up for it? And I said, yeah, I'm up for it. Let's do it. I trust you. I believe in you. But by now, I had done enough. I had enough time to prepare my body, prepare my head, counseling, coaching, meditation, food, the whole lot. Like I had done so much so that I could be really ready for this surgery should it need to happen.
Mhm.
And last thing I did was when I went into surgery, I told the doctors, look, you've got the best patient you're ever going to have. I've prepared myself for this. Like you've got the best body, the best thing, and everything's going to go perfect for you guys because of all the work that I've done in 3 years to get here.
Wow.
So that's
They're
what I
probably
had.
like,
They were like, who is this crazy person? Let's open his head and shut him up, you know? So when I woke up, I wasn't able to use my left side. Then I had to go to rehab, learn how to walk again, use my arm again, all this type of thing. But that's just an example of these are all the things that I had time to do because even though it bled, I now knew what I had. I now
yeah,
knew what was in my head, and I could plan and I could strategize and I could put things in place. And in that time, I mended relationships. I told people I loved them. I hugged them. I apologized. I did so much. And this is what you're giving to people. This is what happens when you do this and find something wrong in somebody's brain years before it does anything to them.
yeah.
Gives them time to do stuff. And I'm so grateful that I had that time because most of the people that I've interviewed that had an AVM had no time.
Yeah. No, I can't believe that you were walking around like that for that long.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wild. Um, that they didn't want to operate or try any radiation or something. I mean, that's like,
Yeah. It's crazy. And the thing about it is that makes the people around me feel like it's not as serious as it is.
yeah, because you're walking, you're talking, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
um, right. They don't.
How could they? And I get it. And it's no problem. But that's what happens. That's it lulls you into this false sense of security. But then when it burst the third time, it was like, man, this is serious shit. Like, we can't stop this happening. It's just happening. We've got to get rid of it. And whatever I wake up with after surgery, I would rather wake up with that than this thing just going one day and that's it. It's all over and I'm not around and I can't speak to people that I love and all that kind of thing. So when I came across your page, it took me a while to get in touch with you. It was so difficult to know how to respond to your posts, how to even put a comment on it because I wanted to put a comment on it. And then I thought I have to find a way to overcome all of my stuff to get you on here because what you're doing is so important. And I want to make sure that as many people as possible hear about this and learn about this. And I feel like we have an opportunity to grow this thing beyond your state, your place where you live and take it global.
Oh, we have to. We have to.
I don't know how, but I think this has to be, and it can be one of those things. You know, we hear about Red Nose Day. You know, we hear about Stroke Week. We hear about Stroke Month. We hear about Wear Red for Stroke. We hear about all of these causes that are amazing, and they're raising awareness for their specific little challenge that they've got in life, and I think we need to take it to the next level and do something about this, because I've been passionate since 2015 when I started this podcast, not really knowing what the hell I was doing it for, what the purpose of it was. And I think I just realized what the purpose was.
Yeah, it's it takes time, and it takes an army, and patience, uh, patience and determination. I remember when I started this, I'm still learning how to use Instagram. I still screw it up constantly. I lose messages. I'm all over the place. But I had somebody reach out to me from one of the biggest organizations, and this was before. Not to, I don't have a lot of people like following me now, but I am getting well known. I have been in the press. Um, and they were like, "So you really think that you're going to be able to do this?" I'm like, "Of course." And they said, "Well, what are you going to do with the money that you raise?" And I said, "I'm not going to do anything. It's going to sit, and I have complete control until my vision and my dream of opening a screening center, or a facility, perhaps buying a machine. Once that's done, that's where my money goes. I don't have, and I said, if I fail, I'll call you and I'll give you a donation. Otherwise, this is what I'm going to do." And it's it's great because I don't have anybody telling me. You know, I never heard from that person again. They never called me,
Mm.
and they were a very big organization, and I was like a deer in headlights. I'm like, "Oh my god, they're on the phone with me," and they, respectfully so, they wanted me to partner with them because this is a really uphill battle. It's very hard. And if you don't have big money behind you, supporters, and a big voice, that's why I keep trying to find a celebrity voice. You know, we got
Mm.
to just keep getting out there because people listen to them.
Yeah. For some
um, we're,
strange, bloody reason, some of them shouldn't even speak, but yeah, they do.
I know, but everybody listens to them. But I did find a celebrity. There's a country singer, Drake White. I'm
Mm.
not a country fan, but I love music. So his music is pretty cool. Seems like a super cool, chill dude. And he did have an AVM rupture,
Wow.
and he spoke very openly about it. And he probably thinks some psychopath, insane person probably going to get arrested one day. He's like, "She's cyber stalking me or something."
Did you
But
get
I
him?
messaged him.
Did you get him on a
I
phone call?
No, I'm like, "Could you call me, please?" I'm like, "I promise I'm a normal person." I said, "I just need help. I need a voice." And I hope he probably, well, he must not think I'm that much of a psycho because he hasn't unfollowed me. But that's how stuff happens. Like, we get all these big people behind these foundations, and it take or a celebrity to sing a song about something or someone, and then it raises attention, and people are like, "Ooh, I know someone who had that. I know someone who had that." And it just, but I don't have that. We don't have that yet. We
Yes.
will.
Well, we can get this interview to Drake, and he can see what
Yes.
we're all about, right? And he can see what the hell is going on, and he can understand how he's not alone. Like, we are also part of his tribe. We've been through what he's been through, and maybe he hasn't expressed it yet, but I'm sure he's got some of the feelings that we've felt, and maybe it'll touch his heart, and that's it. It's all we want. And if it doesn't, it's okay as well. Like, if it's not,
Yeah,
then it's okay.
it's cool. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
But like him, like he's a young guy. He's young. I'm probably the oldest one here. Um, but like, he had like the stroke effects on one side, and he said he had to learn how to play guitar again, and all these things. Um, but I think also a huge thing is, I would like my girlfriend's daughter to be an advocate for us, and be like one of my or our top spokes people, because
Yeah.
I have a video clip I recently posted of her, and she's just such an amazing girl, what she went through, and just so young. And she just she kicks ass, and she's awesome. Sadly, I know a couple of kids that are survivors. Um, Jenna did go through the worst of it, but all the ones that went through it had grueling surgery, had to have after surgeries. They've had to learn how to learn how to walk again. Um, I know one little boy who can't speak. Um, he learned how to walk again, and he can type and text, but when he goes to speak, it doesn't come out.
Mm.
Can you imagine, like, being a child and you go from this normal, happy, bouncy, crazy kid, and then you wake up and you can't move, but you're typing and you're texting, and then you go to say words and you hear what's coming out, like, and that's, I think, gonna go, be with them like that for a very, very long time. The brain heals, but it's it's horrible.
Yeah. How
And
many people have had a free screening so far?
so far, I think we're at 60. So we've had 60 with the screenings. We've had 2 or 3 go for the MRA scan. So the numbers are kind of low, but I've only been part of the screening program, let's see, 8 months, 7 months, and this was during COVID.
Good numbers.
So I don't think it's that bad during COVID, you know, and just getting it out on social media. That was it.
Did anyone find anything that they needed to address?
Nothing yet,
Good.
thank God.
Perfect.
They're not, the doctors cannot, they can't divulge anything, but
Yeah.
most of the people that go for the screening will, like, reach back to me.
Yeah.
A lot of them have a family history of this, or aneurysms. I've had a couple of friends that have a history of aneurysm,
Yeah.
which is so much more common.
Yeah.
But it's only a matter of time, and once people get past, like, I guess, the fear of it,
Mm.
they're like, what are you more afraid of? Are you more afraid of being a parent in my shoes, or I'm giving you something that could prevent that? It's not like, you send your kid out on a bike and, God, my biggest fear is them getting hit by a car. Um, we put helmets on them. But here we have something that, if we find it soon enough,
Mm.
your child can hopefully live a beautiful, long life.
Yeah. I have that conversation about prevention for lots of things with people in my family, and there's so many of them would rather not know. I don't know what
I've
it is.
had so many people say that.
I don't get
And
it.
I'm like, what? What do you mean you don't want to know? I'm like, do you not go to the dentist and they automatically give you an X-ray and check for cavities? Do
Yeah.
you not want your teeth in your mouth?
Yeah.
We have the breast cancer screening. You don't want to go through cancer. If I have it, take it out, take them. And then it's like, what? I don't understand that. Which, and we do so many things, like, for our kids. There's all these things when they're, like, first born. All these tests and all these vaccines. Like, we don't even think about it. It's like,
Mhm.
nope, kid has to have this. Kid has to have this. If it becomes part of the new norm, why not? And it doesn't even have to be just AVMs. Like, I think it would be good for younger children to have an upper scan, because of, look at how many kids have the pediatric brain cancer.
Mm.
I know 2 moms that lost their children, 2,
Mm.
and then other kids that have it. And that's just become, like, rampant. And what are they all told? If we found it a little sooner, we probably could have treated it more effectively or more aggressively. It's like, in this day and age, we shouldn't have to hear that.
That's interesting. The connection doesn't happen. If we found it a little sooner, da 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 da. Well, why didn't you find it a little sooner? What is preventing you from finding it a little sooner? Scans. Oh,
That's it.
well, there you go. So yeah, it's such a strange and bizarre thing. And even me, like now that you say it, it's so bizarre that that's all we have to do is just scam people earlier. That's it.
Yeah, and people are like, "Oh, I heard that you have to have dye injected into you, and you have to." I'm like, if the doctor thinks that you do, other than that, no, you know.
You don't even feel it anyway. Like it doesn't really even feel like anything.
Yeah, I've had it done. I had it,
Yeah.
but for my own just MRA scan, to check to see if I had an AVM, being that, even though I lost a child to that, I don't have any signs or symptoms, so they say. So mine was just a straight up scan. I think mine was like 7 or 10 minutes long,
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good.
that's it.
What to
My
do, you know?
What's interesting is that my cousin who lives in Greece, she's about the same age as me, somewhere mid 40s, somewhere there, late 40s. She had seizures. And what they found for her around the same time that it happened to me, about 10 years ago, it's almost 10 years for me, is that she has an AVM in her head as well. She's on my dad's side.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
So this leads me to, have you ever had the test for HHT?
No, I don't know what that is.
Really?
Mm. What
Oh
is it?
my, we have to do this. Oh my god. So I'm not even going to try and say it. Some days I can pronounce the whole thing, but I'm not even going to try it. HHT. It's like hereditary hemangioblast telangiectasia. So it's a rare bleeding disorder. It's the only um, genetic type of a link to showing a family history of AVMs. It's the
Oh,
only disease. So few people know about it. The neurosurgeon that did Paige's surgery, in they didn't even tell me about it. Nobody, because it's so uncommon. Um, how I found out, when Paige died, a reader read her obituary and sent me an anonymous letter telling me about this disease and said it could have a link to Paige's AVM. So I looked into it and I was like, holy crap. So I talked to people all over the world about it. And almost every person I talked to with this disease, I asked them, anybody ever mention HHT? I would say the percentage is so low. And then the ones that did, they were like, oh, immediately. We got tested and it turns out that my grandfather has it. So it's an autosomal or something. So like, you and your husband have a kid, and somebody on your side, both sides, one can carry this gene, but it can skip generations.
uh,
But if you have this gene in your genetic makeup, someone in your family will develop an AVM. But knowing that you carry this genetic gene, you would then know, okay, you have to have your children, their children, and so forth scanned. So if you have this disease, this genetic carrier, the doctors that find it will tell you there is a chance that you could have a child that develops an AVM, or their children, or their children, or their children. So that's another huge battle to this disease
gosh.
that I'm trying to fight, but because it's a genetic piece, but that's crazy, because the test for that is a swab in your mouth.
Oh my
That's
Lord.
it. So if you think of every parent that is either trying to conceive a child and going to the doctors for all this stuff, and you do all of these tests. I mean, they have a test where you can actually remove the gene for autism
Ooh.
prior to having a child. I have a friend that did it. Yes. You can, choose to, you have your child, I don't know, made in that little thing or whatever, and they like take out that genetic piece, and the baby grows and they're born without that gene.
Wow.
It's freaking insane.
That is
Um,
insane.
yeah,
Wow. So tell me about this. How does it say it? How do you say it again? Hereditary.
hereditary hemorrhagic telangiectasia, HHT. So now you're going to start reading about this, and you're going to be like, "Oh my God!" So HHT. And the doctor that I do
Do your
work with,
thing. Google, do your thing, because I don't know what I've spelt there. It didn't find anything. Hereditary hemorrhagic
yes.
telangiectasia.
Oh no, this is telangiectasia.
Tal- ta-
Telangiectasia.
Oh my God, here we go. Bang. Hereditary hemorrhagic telangiectasia. Why don't they just name it something simple?
I know.
All
Very
right.
interesting.
All right. So, guys, whoever's listening, watching, wants to know more about that, I will have links to some of this stuff on the show notes of the podcast, so that you guys can just look at it and we can talk about it. I'm going to get obsessed with it now, and I'm going to start looking into it.
Oh, you'll be like, oh my God. I'm still obsessed with it, but it takes away from my other time because I have to pick a battle to fight right now.
Yeah, I hear you.
But that's why this is wild.
Yeah.
This HHT thing.
Okay, cool. I'm going to look at it. So thank you for that. Now, can we go back a little bit I just want to touch base with the family and see how you guys are all doing and how your husband is doing and how you guys are doing together. That would have been a really difficult thing. Nothing ever planned. You never get married expecting any of that stuff or planning for any of that stuff.
Mm-mm.
How are you guys? How are you going? How's things?
Very difficult. It's almost like, well, I can't even explain it. It almost feels in a way like we just live two separate lives. You know, we sleep in the same bed, we go through the motions, but it feels like we're going through the motions of life. We're going through the motions to raise our other two children to the very best of our abilities without screwing them up with our sadness.
Mm.
We try to laugh, and it's not easy. It's we don't blame each other for anything because there's nothing that we could have done. But it's just there's such a sadness in our house, and it has just it's rather than bringing us closer, it's brought us apart. But we still come together, you know, when we have to, but it's been very, very difficult on us. And I think we're just so broken. We're so broken. And we just focus so hard on not screwing our other two kids up. And he just throws himself into work. He works so hard, and if he's not working, he's very involved with my son's baseball, and then that's it. And he works out.
Yeah.
And that's his thing.
Coping mechanisms.
Yeah, so we respect that about each other. You know, you do find yourself you drink more. You find vices. I would love to sit there and like just drink all the time, or now I understand how and why people do these drugs to numb their mind. I don't do drugs or anything like that. I'm not an alcoholic. But I get it. I would love, and my husband says the same thing. We would love nothing more than to be numb and not think.
And not feel.
I just don't want to. So we don't really talk about we don't really talk about Paige that much together. Um, it's too hard for me. Um, we
Mm.
do with the kids, and my husband is very open. You know, he's not afraid to cry, um, and he cries with them. And me, I think I am just so on the defense, and I'm such like a protector. You know, I just never let my guard down. You know, I just never want to. I can't stand for my kids to see me upset.
Have you guys done the counseling, been down that route, managed to speak
I
about?
tried it, and I can't say I failed because I never did it for more than 2 visits. Um, I think he's doing some individual counseling on his own.
Mhm.
Um, and I did try again to do some counseling on my own, but it just pissed me off because it made me upset. And I was like, I feel shittier than when I walked in. So now I don't want to go anymore.
Can I,
And
but you jumped on a podcast with me, and we've been speaking for an hour solid.
I know, but that felt good.
But
And
okay,
but I can't sit in a room and like I don't know.
yeah, I love it. Okay, but I just wanted to throw that out there because what you just said was weird, and I understand you because I completely understand you, and I'm not going to judge you or any of that stuff. And you guys have your journey. That whole because part of what I do is I coach people. I coach people to overcome the challenges that stroke causes. And most people think that what they're being coached for and overcoming is what the stroke did. And it's a load of bullshit. What they're overcoming is what they were before the stroke. Difficult, in connecting with people, arguing with people, stopping themselves from achieving their best life, fears, anxieties, all this rubbish that we do in our lives. And what happens is stroke happens and then it gets amplified. All those things get amplified. But the problem with it is now I've got an excuse. I had a stroke. So I've got an excuse for all the reasons why I'm anxious, upset, emotional, why I won't go there, why I won't do this. And what happens inevitably with the guys that come on for a couple of sessions and then don't want to feel the feelings is those feelings remain and they persist. And one of my amazing coaches, and she probably got it from some amazing guru around the world, I don't know where, she said to me, what you resist persists. And it's with
Mhm.
you for longer and it causes more trauma for a longer period of time down the track. And what she was encouraging me to do was go there, go where the pain was and talk about the pain, because once you've done that and you've opened the door and it releases, yeah, it's a shitstorm at that time, but then later, once the shitstorm's gone, you can't go back to that same painful place again. You kind of have dealt with that little bit of it and it's gone. And one of the things that frustrates me dramatically is when I've been to counseling on my own. That frustrates the hell out of me. I would rather be in that room with the person that I love, that I'm married to, that I've had children with, that says to me, all the things that I can say, all the things that I want to say from no judgment or anything. Just I'm being a human. I'm just interacting. I'm just talking. And then what the miracle that happens is that perhaps this is in my mind. The miracle that happens is that she goes somewhere where she has resisted to go for 50 years, and it releases something, and then we can move on. We can let that one go, and then we can move on. And once you get good at going there where it's hard and releasing it, you get better and better at it, and it feels better and better. And the other side is much nicer. And the trauma that you experienced stays in the past, and you're not reliving it in the future. All you're doing is remembering it for what it was, you're addressing it for what it was, and then you're moving on with it. It doesn't change the way that you love your daughter. It doesn't change the way that you interact with your children now. It doesn't change anything about anything. It just takes it out of that place where you've locked it away, that it reminds you from time to time that it's still there, and it just releases it and it just sets it free. And along with that, it sets you free. So this is the beautiful thing about podcasts is I get to interfere in people's lives in this beautiful way by ringing them or sending them a message or a podcast interview or request or whatever and going, come on my podcast, complete strangers like you, come on my podcast. They bare their soul, and I cannot understand how then that complete stranger who bears their soul, some of them have said to me, I'm the first person in 10 years that they have spoken to about their stroke.
It's
And
weird.
and then that person won't go to counseling. And it's like, guys, this is what we're doing. This is a counseling session. You just haven't worked it out, sucked you in. And what we're doing is at the same time, we're creating the counseling session goes out there to all the 4,000 people a month who download this podcast.
Yeah. You know what it is? I feel like I almost feel vulnerable in a sense when when I have done counseling. I feel like, because then I walk back in, I'm like, they know my weakness. They saw me weak, and then it bothers me, and then I get uncomfortable, or I get uncomfortable that I cried.
Yeah.
I think that's a big problem for me too. I don't know why I'm very uncomfortable crying in front of people.
Remember all those rules that you just relaxed after you lost your daughter?
Yeah.
This is one of them. Just let it go.
And I say it all the time. I'm the biggest one. Let it go. Let it go.
Yeah.
But I
know it's harder.
I would explode. That's probably why I know why I have so many stomach problems, because I'm exploding inside.
Yeah. I get it.
I kill myself.
Yeah. I'm so glad. I'm so privileged to have you let me tell you these things, and you're understanding where I'm coming from. I am so grateful that you let me do that. And that's kind of a little gift that I give you. Some people don't take it as a gift. Some people get really shitty that I give them my opinion and my thoughts. And I love you for listening and copping it on the chin and not hating me forever about it. But some people need to just hear it. And I'm grateful that you let me, and I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to let you go down your own path. I don't begin to know the first thing about anything. I don't believe that I know the first thing about anything, especially in this situation. I've got no idea. I don't want to ever know what you feel and what you really are going through, because no parent does, no human does. And it's unfortunate that there's some people that do. And you guys are my heroes. That's why I reached out, because I needed to make sure that I did my bit and make something good out of the shit that I've been through, to help you make something good out of the shit that you've been through. And together, maybe we can make a difference, and maybe we can change things, and maybe we can fix things and overcome things. And I know we're not going to fix everything and change everything and solve all the problems, but if we just make one person's life a little bit different, it'll all have been worth it, right?
Yeah, that's what it's all about. Just start with one. Just one.
Yeah. And then we'll take any others as a bonus after that.
Yes. Yes. Complete.
So how are you raising money? What are the things that you do to raise money? How can people support your cause?
Well, we have our website, which is thePaigeKeeleyFoundation.com. We have a donation link right on there. And during COVID, we were very restricted to what, any outside fundraising events, etc. But we were able to do a couple. And I live in a wonderful community that still treats it like it was yesterday. The businesses, the customers, thousands of dollars are donated constantly, just by we have bracelets that we do for the foundation that local shops carry. We have these like signature stickers that go in storefront windows, and then that just turns into a fundraiser that they'll do. And we have a baseball tournament that I'm so excited we finally got to do, and we've got some incredible sponsors, companies that donated hundreds of dollars worth of products that get raffled. And that goes right into the foundation. We recently were awarded our first grant, which is going to be between $1,000 and $2,000. And this was all done social media. It was a Facebook group, 100 Women Who Care. And the girlfriends that work with me, they said, you got to join this group. And it's great. It's men and women that get together that run foundations. And every quarter we donate $100 and then we nominate a foundation. And it's a win-win. I've done online fundraisers on Facebook where I'll raffle something off, like something really cool, and you get like hundreds of dollars. What are some of the other things that we do? I have car dealerships that help. It's really through the sponsorships, and I got to tell you, the community, the town that I live in, I still don't believe. I don't know where the people come from, but they just treat it like it happened yesterday. And they're like, yeah, we'll do a fundraiser. Of course we will. And it just trickles to where we're under a year. No, what am I saying? We just had our year anniversary, and we are just under 50,000 that we've raised.
Wow.
And I haven't had like anything big yet.
Wow. So great.
I think that's huge. That's a lot of money.
That's
like a lot.
Of money. That's a lot of money.
Yeah. And it's just, I'm collecting and collecting, because I'm dreaming of opening that center. And if I am able to save up or get enough money and funding for a machine, I just need one. The doctor that I work with, it will open the door to, you come in for a screening. Hey, would you like the scan? Because I own the machine and nobody can tell me no. That's what it's going to do. Yeah. And nobody can tell us no. And I would like to open it to the community where maybe we could do, 50 free scans a month. Maybe we'll do 100. Maybe we'll offer it to this school. Everybody in this school who took part in our program, your family comes in on such and such a day. And just doing that, that's it. That's where it's going.
How much does the machine cost?
I heard that they can go anywhere from like 100 to 500,000 to millions. There are companies that donate them. I just haven't gotten that far to like do the research. You can get like grants, but there are like medical supply companies that actually give them to foundations. As long as you have the place to house the machine, which we do, because of COVID, I haven't been able to do that.
Wow.
But now the COVID's kind of lifting a bit here in the States. We have a gala that we're planning in October, one of those like big foo-foo, which I'm very nervous about, but we're expecting to invite a lot of people that can help us. And it's really going to get the word out and hopefully open a lot of doors for us. The doctor will be there. We're expecting some really great things.
So brilliant. That is such an amazing thing. 50 grand in a year. So
yeah,
at this rate, with no effort of increasing it or doing anything in 10 years, you'll have raised $500,000. That will be amazing. But of course, it sounds like it's going to go way beyond that, and that's great. So all you need is a room. You've got the room, and now all you need is a machine, and then you can just get people in, and you can get doctors to volunteer and donate their time, and radiographers, etc. There'll be definitely people that will be up to doing that, and you could screen as many people as you want whenever you want, and it can cost nothing, and that's all you need. And then the people that come could offer a little donation. They could leave $10 or $20, and they could help.
And even, if we have to, if we have to increase, staff, I'm just saying, hypothetically, staffing or something like that, all right, we have MRAs for $50, for $100, for $200, something like that, but it just opens the door to so many things, and it's possible. Anything is possible.
Anything is possible. People
You can't go back in time yet
Yeah.
that I know of, but this is possible.
I wish you could. That would be a really good reason to go back in time. Wow. I mean, this is such a heavy podcast. I didn't want it to be heavy, but I knew it would be, so I just accepted the fact. Look, I'm really grateful that you're on the podcast. I really appreciate it. I wish we never met, and this never happened. And I wish you well, and I wish your family well, your children and your wife and your husband, I beg your pardon, and I wish you guys healing and growth and all the things that you guys need to move on and expand. And remember Paige, who was perfect in every way. Like your other children, I wish them well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get off this podcast in a little while. In a second, I'm going to go to the donate page. I'm going to donate $100. And anyone listening, I don't know how. Hopefully, it converts Aussie to US. I want to donate $100 US. So hopefully, people listening can go and donate some money. $10, $1, $5, 50 cents, whatever they want. It doesn't matter. Just please, that is the call to action for this podcast episode, is listen, learn, and then go ahead and donate and support this amazing cause. And I feel like what you and I need to do is we need to combine, because I really want to be behind raising awareness for you on Instagram. So if maybe we can get together and do a maybe every 2-month catch up, or an every 2-month short Instagram video, or do like we're raising money or awareness for this thing. Maybe we can every couple of months do something so that we can continue some momentum and bring followers to your page. So the website is thePaigeKeeleyFoundation.com, and the Instagram is also Paige Keeley Foundation, and Paige is spelled Paige. Keeley is Keely Foundation. And I've got 4,000 followers, and I'm no one special. So what we want to do is we want to increase your 1,158 followers right now to 100,000 followers worldwide. So go ahead and follow the Paige Keeley Foundation. Go ahead and make a small donation, and reach out and send Gina a message and let her know that you're there. How's that sound?
It sounds amazing, and it was such a pleasure to speak to you. Again, I'm sorry that we did meet, but we met, and here we are across the world, and we found each other. So we're not such needles in the haystack, and joining forces to make change, no matter where you are. You don't have to be in, around the block.
Nope, you can be on the other side, right at the bottom of the planet, and that's where I am.
We're all people breathing the same air, just at a different time.
Thank you very much for being my guest. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, and bless you and your family, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Discover how to heal your brain after stroke. Go to recoveryafterstroke.com. Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamas. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.